Hello, everyone. Welcome into the Women's Wellness Network. Here we are. I think it's Thursday today, at least in this part of the world. I'm coming to you from just north of Toronto, and spring is here, except, well, today it's foggy, which is so weird. But that's okay because I know there's sun on the other side of those clouds, so it's all good, right? At least it's not snow. So, hello, everybody. We have, well, it says Moonbeam on her screen, but her name's actually Cheyenne. So, hello, Cheyenne. How are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful, Tammy. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. Where in the world are you?
Right now, I'm located in Wichita, Kansas.
Oh, cool,
It's
cool.
smack dab in the middle of the country.
Awesome. Do you have a sunny day today?
It's really pretty outside. It's still a little chilly, but I don't have any fog like you do.
Oh, lucky, lucky. Well, I'm loving your sunshine from here. So I have had the honor of speaking with you before on ENTV today, and that was such a great conversation. I could not wait to have you over here on the Women's Wellness Network. So why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what it is that you do?
Wonderful. I am Cheyenne Moore. I have a podcast called Safe Space with Cheyenne. We dive into spiritual awakenings, consciousness, healing modalities, really bridging spirit and science. I think that is the best way. We do it through personal stories of people's transformations, whether they have a metaphysical background or not. And overall, it really is just a safe space to listen in and learn or to come on and share to really put those stories out into the world for wherever you are on your healing journey.
Beautiful. That's so nice. It's so nice to have a place where, people can share their stuff and yeah, have somebody who kind of, guides them along a little bit because you're kind of that way. How did you begin doing what brought you to do the podcast to begin with?
Well, I experienced my own version of a spiritual awakening. I like to call it an Akashic remembering. I borrowed that from Greg Braden
Mhm.
because you're really unbinding all of who you are not to go back to your true state. And that's really the work that I've been doing on myself the last 5 years. And in the beginning, when it happened, I was like, wow, what a revolution. But it's not normal to talk about it, really. It still was like really taboo to me even 5 years ago when I came across it. I was like, am I losing my mind? Like, what is going on? So, luckily, I'm a writer too, and I've been writing for many, many years to myself in journals and really just trying to interpret the human experience through my own vessel. And I was able to recap a lot of almost like hints and synchronicities that this is slowly, like the universe is tapping on my shoulder over and over. And spontaneously, 2 weeks before my wedding, I had what's called a Kundalini awakening. So all the energy centers just explode. My heart chakra was the first one to explode. And it was radical. It was rebellious. It was truly a revolution inside myself. Um, Still, even when I talk about it, I'm like, I can't believe I'm talking about this. So that's kind of like where the podcast started. I asked myself a series of very deep questions, which one that I was recommended was to just sit down and ask myself, who were you before the world got you? Who were you before the world told you you couldn't be? Who or what you wanted to do or be? And that was in like inner child meditation healings. That was in the beginning of that part. And that was like a well of knowledge just sitting there, like begging to be opened. Um, to say it was like it's traumatizing, I don't want to say it's traumatizing. I think it's like relieving the pressure of the trauma that you are already carrying around. And we're just completely unconscious to that fact. So I can't say like having a podcast was like a deep childhood dream of mine because podcasts didn't exist, but the broadcasting industry did. And when I wanted to go to college, I wanted to go into broadcasting. I loved music, I loved radio, I loved the personality, and I just loved the idea of traveling around and showing people the world. So when I finally kind of reclaimed my voice back, I had documented not only all the things that I'd went through, but all of these things out in the world that like nobody's talking about. Like, why aren't we talking about, or like comparative research almost, right? So I just wanted to talk all the time. I know from the last interview I did with you, he said it was a fire hose. And I was so excited to do that interview. I was like, we have 30 minutes, let's go. So I needed a safe space, not only for myself to talk and get all this information out and just kind of put the information out there to the world and whoever receives it. I was really hoping that the universe, God, source, whatever you like to call it, was going to direct it to the people that were obviously in line with what I was trying to say. That's really where it came from. Like, realizing I wasn't safe in a lot of places, being completely out of alignment with my body, and even going through traumas when I was younger that I would just like downplay, and I would be like, oh, somebody had it so much worse. Like, I'm so lucky that blah, 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 blah. Like, I was really gaslighting myself in a lot of the ways that I had been affected that were obviously playing out in my daily character. And I knew that the way that I wasn't really who I was. It's such a weird thing to say, like, oh, I'm here, but I'm not here. You know, when you say that consciously, you're like, what does that mean? And to me, it was really the ego and the self coming into play. So when I started the safe space, I wanted to take my desire for being safe and give it to other people and just give them a space where no matter how crazy you think your story is, like, come tell us, because there might be someone out in the world that's going through the same thing and they need your voice. We just have to get it out in the world. We just have to press publish.
Exactly. My goodness. Yes, exactly. And that's what we're doing here, right? That's our purpose. That's our thing. Find these things that resonate with so many people, but they're still hush hush, and nobody's really, talking too much about yet. Like something like a Kundalini awakening, right? That's been very taboo, and oh, that's like devil stuff and whatever, right? Like it's such a
Yeah, well,
mis
you're
mis
absolutely
mis
right.
yeah, like a miscommunicated thing.
Hmm. It's a deep form of ignorant programming, if I can try to put it as kind as possible, because, we're taught about the boxes and the parameters, and I believe in this, I don't believe in that type aspect. And that was very confusing for me, even when I was a child. I understood um, how like perfect Jesus was, how we were taught in the unconditional love, and you would almost be reprimanded in the name of Jesus, like you weren't doing as, but you would watch your elders and neither were they. So
Right.
they had like a really good mask, right? But they still weren't doing all the work that Jesus was telling them to do. So in a religious stance, it's extremely confusing because you're like, okay, karma makes sense to me. Like, it's energetic. That makes sense to me. Reincarnation made sense to me. It did not make sense. Again, it's not a conversation brought up where I was raised. So my notebooks were really like my safe space for the longest time, because I was able to just have conversations with myself. And yes, I was worried someone would find my journals, but it was such a relief to be able to question these things and go outside of these parameters that I was given. They're like, no, this is you, this is what you believe in, go get the American dream, so to speak. And the exploration has been wonderful. I think I was given a rebellious soul on purpose, and a curious soul that's definitely led me down a lot of crazy trails, but this has been probably my favorite of like just getting to know myself. Is, I mean, there's nothing better, honestly. I know family and friends matter and all of these wonderful things, but when you're sitting with them and you're alone, you're alone in a crowd, you're trying to connect with your friends, but you're disassociated so much because there's something missing. I lived a lot of my life that way. And I honestly thought that I was stuck with being disassociative for the most part because so many things were going on. And through mixed modalities and learning and basically being a guinea pig on myself, I wanted to like report back to Earth. I'm like, I have this self-imposed mission to try all of these things for you and me, and I'm going to show you like what sticks and what doesn't really stick for me. But if you're listening to the content and it resonates and you're like, oh, I would love to try this, here's my experience with it to kind of make you feel a little better.
Exactly. Yes. Having somebody there who says, "Oh, I tried this. Maybe it didn't work for me. It might work for you, but it's available." Right? These are the things that people are now starting to discover. Oh, we have all these resources and modalities and ways of being that are, different than we're programmed from our young childhood. And yeah, to discover that we have a choice. We can go outside of ourselves and look for things that are new and uncomfortable because, well, that's where growth usually happens. And
Mhm.
yeah, that must have been so interesting going from being a curious person, keeping your journals and making sure that you're, you know, living your insides outside of,
Mhm.
your who you are. And then years later, having that awareness, oh, wait a second. I remember me back then. I remember I wrote those things. I remember who I was. So a remembering of the child myth, because in our childhood, before the world crushes us and makes us believe all sorts of different things that maybe aren't even true. Um, yeah, to have that resource of journaling, right here, the perfect example of being able to go back and look upon how you were, what you were doing, what you were thinking. And yeah, because sometimes we go through our lives and go, I remember this from something or sometime. I remember thinking about this or questioning it or wondering about it. But to have the resources to go back and actually see it for yourself from your own words, even, is incredible, incredible. So it must have been so helpful when you had your awakening. And that must have been confusing too at that time, just like right before your wedding. And oh my goodness, what is going on? And who do I talk to? Because did everybody think were you like acting and behaving differently, or were you trying to just keep it normal under the carpet?
Such good questions. I remember rolling over the day that I knew that I was different. Um, and the best way that I describe it is like somebody gave me psilocybin without telling me. Like if you've ever taken mushrooms, the first thing, a lot of the reports that come back is this interconnectedness to everything, understanding that you are a part of everything. We are all from the same place. All of this duality, all of this conflict is complete poppycock. I mean, we have manifested it and made it energetically real over incarnation after incarnation. But the interconnectedness and the bliss and the understanding just washed over me. Like, again, energetically, eagle eye view. And my first thought was, why would this happen to me? I'm extremely unworthy of this sight. That was the first. I'm like, some woman in the middle of the Midwest just losing her mind trying to think, something mystical and spiritual is happening to her. Like clearly she's losing her mind. So it's not like I woke up and like called my parents. I rolled over and I explained in detail the dreams that I was seeing, the things that I was experiencing to my husband. And bless his heart, he still married me because I was like, hey, this is pretty trippy and it doesn't look like it's winding down anytime soon. If you want to back out now, like I don't blame you at all. I think I'd leave me too at this point because I feel a little loca, right? So I did have a best friend from childhood that we had just, I would say, synchronistically got in contact again. And I was telling her about all of the things that I was experiencing, kind of the same way that if you saw a ghost, you would call your friend that believes in ghosts and was like, did I really see a ghost? So we started talking, and I was telling her about kind of all what you would call ascension symptoms. Um, or activation, rising of Kundalini, however you express it. And she started telling me about how she went through an extremely expansive spiritual awakening during her yoga journey. And we met up immediately, and I felt so safe to tell her every crazy thing that was going on. Because when like all of that debris comes off of you, right? Like we have five like physical senses and we have five spiritual senses. But I truly believe that we've all been blocked out of alignment, off kilter on purpose to dumb us down and just keep us doing dumb shit. Sorry, I'm not supposed to cuss on here, but that's just the truth. So when I was having all of these experiences, I had all five clair senses activate. So my logical brain was like, I need science for this. I need help. Like, what is a clair sense? What is claircognizance? What's clairvoyance? What's clairaudience? All of these clairs. And I just honestly started playing with them like a kid in a sandbox, which when you get into like the metaphysical realm and opening your third eye and stuff, there is a lot of people talking about protection, attachments, infiltration. It's 100% possible because you're accessing things that you were told don't exist, that they're fantasy, and it's a mental illness if it happens. So it's really scary because who do you go to? You don't want to be locked up and tell the nurse who's putting you behind a closed door that her grandma is standing behind her. To me, she's there. To her, I'm, crazy. So it was very scary to share the information with some people. And I've always had a really strong connection with my intuition. Even when I was a kid, I just knew things that I shouldn't have known. I had wonderful paranormal experiences when I was younger, and all the houses I lived in, like it was just honestly, it was normal to me, but it's not like I walked around and was like, oh yeah, I can see stuff like that. It was just like it's another frequency, like we're overlapping something that I still couldn't put a definition to. So when I went to her and just kind of explained it, she really helped me be human when I was not feeling like a human. Like I really felt like the relationship and the online action, like me and my higher self linked up, and she was like, I got you. And I was like, oh my God, you're real. Because even in like stories, like I would write about this guardian or this person, or, sometimes the character would be a past loved one that would come on, but I would always be sitting with them on a bench or at some very nature spot, and I would be sitting there like confiding in them because there was nobody on earth I could tell how much I was struggling. And I would write these stories out, even though I would see them somewhat in a liminal imaginary space. But I'm like, I can go back through all of my writings and I have confessed all of these things to this higher self of mine, this more evolved person. And that, I mean, really just came in and connected me with a lot of truths that I had wondered if they were truths, if they were just like beautiful philosophies that I wanted to believe to lessen the suffering of the physical world. I honestly think you can go both ways with that. Um, I the clairs started to pick up where, being around people was really hard because I could pick up, it was like I could pick up the things that they didn't want to talk about or didn't want to work on. So I would be introduced with like your mask, right? And it's like, hi, nice to meet you. But then like, please help, like the soul is like speaking behind them. So it was very trippy for me. I went full blown into studying the clair senses, doing anything I could to really make myself understand from a logical standpoint without pushing the feminine out, because that really was the biggest part of the healing. It was the go find your feminine, go find your creation. And then that's when the writing just expanded. The podcast came to life. I got married, I had a child, I was in the midst of balancing my spiritualness and this soul, and honestly, just getting to know myself again. Like, I just found myself and I found out I was pregnant. And I just spiraled. I remember just like making videos to myself for my future self. Like, I don't ever want you to forget how messed up you actually felt, because there are people in the future that will go through this and they're going to think they're having an absolute mental breakdown and they're going to end up in the wrong hands. I luckily didn't end up in the wrong hands. I wound up in the hands of extremely loving people that were very open and willing to hear my side of the story and even let me talk about things that I just realized, oh my gosh, like that thing that happened 10, 12, 15 years ago is really affecting who I am now. And it was a beautiful place to transition through. I realize more than ever now it's a beautiful journey, even though there are some parts that my ego would love to deem as, oh, this is bad, this isn't what I want, this isn't a part of the way. But I wouldn't be in this interview today. This tie-dye behind you would not be made. This shirt would not be made. The way that I speak, everything about me would not be had I not woken up 5 years ago. So my creation exploded, my love of the world, and my understanding of the interconnectedness. But it doesn't mean that I still don't get extremely socially awkward because I hear stuff that I shouldn't hear. I've definitely figured out how to ground all of the clairsenses. I've backed away from a lot of the third eye apparition stuff that I experienced heavily the first 3 years. And my clairaudience is like my strongest gift. It's been with me since I was a kid. So that's the one I'm super in tune with a lot because that's how I consistently talk to my higher self. But I know I'm not alone. In the beginning, and even still now, when I tell people, you're going to get mixed reviews, but I found it's just really important for me to tell the truth about my experience and just really not care anymore if my friends believe me, if my family believes me, if I lose friends, if I lose people. Because I don't like the version of me that you want me to be in your life. So there is heartache in it, and I don't like to paint it as some love and light story because it's a unification of the duality inside of you. It's the union of the masculine and the feminine in here.
Yeah, and I see that sitting there with your two tie-dye spots, right? One's masculine, one's feminine. You're in the middle with almost a matching shirt, right? That's the coming back together of yourself. And as you say, yeah, it is not easy and it's not always fun. And finding the right people to be able to speak with about these things is so important. And I love that you made the Safe Space podcast because obviously your Claire of audio is very strong. So you can hear people when they speak to you. You know how to you know, make that dance so that you probably feel very safe and are able to express what they want to express. I know just even myself listening to you, talking to you, like I feel like I could just hear this is everything about me because you have that presence about you. And obviously we need that in the world. And I think, you've gone on this journey, I've gone on my journey. So we could be here at this time to help other people feel okay, feel comfortable with who they actually are, and yeah, help uncover a little bit of that and discover the real truth of who we want to be. And yeah, as you said, yeah, we're going to lose people. It's sad, and it's just the way. It's just the way. And it doesn't mean that they will never come back because, some people eventually get on the path and they start to understand. But a lot of people choose not to. So yeah, that's one of those decisions that we have to make to continue to ascend and make our higher choices. Even though, yeah, sometimes there is still suffering and there's still a little bit of pain. We're still human, so of course that stuff doesn't really go away. So I hope that one day you're going to be like doing some sort of book or something that explains your lessons and your journey because it would be so amazing. Or even just like an audio book where people could listen to, your lessons that you've taken from when you were younger and the things that you've seen come to light. Just amazing. You have an incredible story. I love your journey. Yeah, how can people find you? Tell us, please.
The books are in the works, so I appreciate you saying that. I am publishing an ebook right now. It's called Self-Love 101, How to Look in the Mirror. And it's in paragraph form and affirmation form based on parts of my journey. Super quick just to get it out there and get the ball rolling. As far as where you can catch me on YouTube at Safe Space with Cheyenne, TikTok, Safe Space with Cheyenne, and then I also have a Facebook, Safe Space with Cheyenne, where I post a lot of the content for the guests that come on as well. So as long as I can just continue to get rid of the stage fright that has just caught me my whole life, I will still be putting stuff up on YouTube and still talking about, or at least retrospecting the last 5 years of how it's transformed me from the offline person that I lived for 28 years prior to that.
So great. So great that you have so many options for us. And yeah, we really appreciate everything that you have to share. And yes, we're going to put all your information into the comments so that people can find you. I know there's especially things like that, like the Kundalini rising. A lot of people are super curious about what that is. I've had that experience myself. So it's like, oh, yeah, we got to get this stuff out there because like I said, I think everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people are going to be coming, as you call it, online within themselves. And yeah, to be ready for that, to have some knowledge of what that might look like when it does happen, and who to go to and who you can speak to when that occurs. Because that was, it's not for the faint of heart, but it is definitely part of the ascension journey, and it is well worth every ounce of everything that you have to uh, embody and embrace to take you to the next level. So thank you so much for coming on, Cheyenne. I really love speaking with you. And yeah, I look forward to listening to your podcast because yeah, just all the things, right? Everything you speak of
Wonderful.
is
I
super
love it.
interesting.
There's something for everybody there.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, Women of the Women's Wellness Network, if you'd like to reach out to Cheyenne or catch her on her podcast, all the stuff will be in all of her stuff. I was saying stuff. All of her information will be in the comments below. And yeah, go ahead and look for her and see what she's all about. And until next time, be well. Thank you, Cheyenne. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yes, thank you. If you ever want to hop on and tell your story, you're more than welcome to.